They called the wrong world. They answered, and the galaxy shook. Part 1. The Wrong Signal. The sky was burning. Elder stood at the window of the command tower and watched his world die. Prime had been peaceful for 10,000 years. His people had never known war. They had never needed weapons. They had built gardens and libraries and temples to knowledge. They had believed that kindness was the way of the universe. They had been wrong. The warships filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects. Their weapons fired down without pause. Cities that had stood for centuries became dust in seconds. Millions ran through the streets, their soft blue skin covered in ash, their large, gentle eyes filled with terror. They had nowhere to go. They had no way to fight. Was old. He had lived for 300 years and had seen many things, but he had never seen death on this scale. He had never imagined it was possible. Elder, said a young technician named Counselor. His voice was shaking. The evacuation ships are ready. We must go. Did not move from the window. Below him, a landing craft descended into the main square. Soldiers poured out, tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms, each holding a weapon. They did not take prisoners. They did not ask for surrender. They simply killed everything that moved. How many ships do we have? Asked. 47 transport vessels, said. We can save perhaps 200,000 people out of 8 billion. Closed his eyes. 200,000, a tiny fraction, a rounding error, but it was something, it was survival. Launch the ships, he said. Get everyone you can into the asteroid field. They will not follow us there. It is too dangerous for their sensors. Nodded and ran to give the orders. Remained at the window for one more moment. He whispered a prayer for the dead. Then he turned and walked away from his burning world. The evacuation was chaos. Ships launched under fire. Some were destroyed before they cleared the atmosphere. Others made it to space only to be hunted by fighters, but enough survived. Enough reached the asteroid field and hid among the tumbling rocks. For 3 days the survivors drifted in the darkness. They rationed food. They treated the wounded. They mourned. They searched for them but could not find them in the maze of asteroids. Eventually, the enemy ships left to continue their conquest elsewhere. But everyone knew the truth. They would return. They always returned. They had destroyed 100 civilizations before they would destroy 100 more. No one had ever stopped them. On the 4th day, called a meeting of the surviving leaders. There were only 12 of them, 12 leaders for 200,000 refugees. We cannot stay here forever, said one of them. Our food will run out. Our ships need repairs. We need help. There is no help, said another. They control this entire sector. No one will risk their anger to save us. What about the Unified Systems Alliance? Asked. He was young and still had hope. They are powerful. They have many worlds. Perhaps they will protect us. Shook his head slowly. The Alliance is far away. It would take months to reach them, and they are pacifists like us. They have no weapons. They cannot fight Then what do we do? Asked. Do we simply wait to die? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Looked at the faces around him, faces filled with fear and despair. These were his people. He had led them for 50 years. He could not let them die without trying everything. There is one option, he said quietly, the emergency beacon. The others looked confused. What beacon? Asked. An old technology, explained. From before we joined the galactic community. It sends a distress signal across vast distances. It was designed to reach the Alliance in case of emergency. We have never used it. I do not even know if it still works. Then we must try, said. Nodded, he led them to a forgotten room in the oldest ship. There, covered in dust, sat a machine that had not been activated in 2,000 years. Placed his hand on the controls. He hesitated. What is wrong? Asked. I am afraid, admitted. Afraid that no one will answer, afraid that we are truly alone. Then he activated the beacon. The machine hummed to life. Lights flickered. Power surged through ancient circuits. A signal burst from the ship and punched through subspace, traveling faster than light, reaching across the galaxy. But something went wrong. A technician looked at his screen and turned pale. Elder, the coordinates, they have shifted. The signal is not going to the Alliance. Where is it going? Demanded. The technician checked and checked again. His hands were trembling. It is going to Sector 7G, a system marked as forbidden. A single planet. The database calls it a Class 7. Felt his blood turn cold. He knew what it was, every child knew. They were planets so dangerous, so hostile to life that no civilized species could survive there. Extreme gravity, poisonous atmospheres, constant natural disasters. And sometimes intelligent life evolved there anyway. Life that was hard, life that was violent, life that scared even the... "What is the planet called?" whispered. The technician looked at his screen. The natives call it Earth. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet that orbited a yellow star, the signal arrived. It was night in the Korean peninsula. In a military monitoring station built into a mountainside, a young lieutenant named was drinking his third cup of coffee and trying to stay awake. His job was to watch for unusual signals from space. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened. Then his screen lit up. Almost spilled his coffee. He stared at the data streaming across his monitor. It was a signal, an alien signal. After all these years, after all the searches, something had finally come. But this was not a greeting. This was not a message of peace. Ran the translation software and watched the words appear on his screen. They were simple. They were desperate. "Help US. We are dying. Please anyone help." Attached to the message was video footage. Played it and felt his stomach turn. He saw cities burning. He saw strange blue-skinned creatures being slaughtered. He saw children running and falling and not getting up. He saw a genocide. Grabbed his communicator and called his commander. Within an hour, the signal had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. Within a day, every nation on the planet knew what had been received. The debate began immediately. Some said it was a trap. Some said it was not humanity's problem. Some said the distances were too great, the enemy too strong, the risk too high. Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. They had never fought an alien species. They did not know what was waiting for them out there. But others said something different. They said that someone was dying. They said that Earth had the power to help. They said that if humanity turned away from this, they would not deserve to call themselves human. Captain stood before the United Defense Council and spoke the words that would change history. "I have watched the footage," he said. "I have seen what is happening to these people. They are not human, they do not look like us, they do not think like us, but they are afraid, they are suffering, and they asked for help." He looked at the leaders of Earth, presidents and generals and scientists. "We can argue about whether this is smart. We can argue about whether this is safe. But I think there is only one question that matters. If we were the ones dying, would we want someone to come? I know my answer. I hope you know yours." The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. 3 days later, the Earth defense vessel Defiance launched from orbit, accompanied by 12 other warships. Their destination was Sector 7G. Their mission was rescue. Their crew was ready for anything. At least they thought they were. On the Defiance, Captain assembled his team. There was his chief tactician, a woman whose mind worked like a weapon. There was Park, the combat medic who smiled too much for someone who had seen so much death. There was Minyu, the weapons specialist, who rarely spoke but never missed. And there was Bei, the engineer, who could fix anything with spare parts and stubbornness. They were not heroes. They were soldiers. They did not know what they were flying into. They only knew that someone needed help. As the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed, looked out at the stars, and wondered what the aliens would think when they saw humans for the first time. He had no idea that the galaxy was about to find out what it could do. They called the wrong world, the answered, and the galaxy shook. Part 2, the arrival. The Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the alarm started screaming. "Contact," shouted the sensor officer. "Multiple hostile ships. They are right on top of us." Captain gripped his command chair and stared at the. Directly ahead, blocking their path, were 5 alien warships. They were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Defiance. Their hulls were covered in weapons. Their design was ugly and brutal. They had set up a blockade. "All ships weapons hot," ordered. His voice was calm, his heart was not. "What do you see?" Studied her tactical display with cold eyes. 5 cruisers, heavy armor, standard formation. They did not expect us to arrive here. They are scrambling to respond. "Then let us not give them time," said. "All ships attack pattern Delta, fire at will." The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves. They were smaller than the ships, but they were faster. They were more aggressive. And they had something they did not expect: no hesitation. The Defiance fired first. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy weapons blazed. The lead cruiser took hits across its bow before it could raise shields. Explosions bloomed along its hull. The other human ships followed. 12 vessels against 5, but the humans fought like they were the ones outnumbered. They pushed forward instead of holding back. They aimed for weak points. They did not wait for the enemy to make mistakes. They forced them to make mistakes. On the flagship, Commander watched the battle with growing confusion. These ships had come from the Forbidden Sector. The Zone. No civilized species lived there. No civilized species could live there. "What are these creatures?" demanded. "Why do they fight like this?" His tactical officer had no answer. The enemy ships were taking damage but not retreating. One human vessel lost its engines but kept firing. Another was venting atmosphere from a dozen breaches, yet its crew continued to fight. "They should be dead," the tactical officer whispered. "They should be running. Why do they not run?" In the asteroid field nearby, the refugees watched the battle on their sensors. Elder stood in the command center of his ship, surrounded by his people. They had expected to see Alliance vessels, elegant, peaceful, built for diplomacy. What they saw instead made their blood freeze. "Those are not Alliance ships," Counselor said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They are. I do not know what they are." Pulled up the identification database. He scanned for any match. When he found it, his 4-fingered hands began to shake. "Earth," he read aloud. "Class 7. Gravity 1 standard dangerously high. Atmosphere nitrogen-oxygen mix with trace toxins. Climate extreme and unstable. Native life hostile at all levels. Intelligent species human, bipedal predators, persistence hunters, highly aggressive, highly adaptable. Warning level maximum." Turned pale. "We called a species, we called them here. Elder, we have doomed ourselves." But was watching the battle. The human ships were winning. The cruisers, the same ships that had destroyed his, were being torn apart. "No," said slowly, "perhaps we have saved ourselves." The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, 3 cruisers were destroyed. The other 2 fled at maximum speed, badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 1 ship and suffered damage to several others, but they had won. Captain allowed himself 1 moment of relief. Then he turned to his communications officer. "Scan the asteroid field," he ordered. "Find the survivors. Let them know we are here to help." The message went out. On the ship received it. He hesitated. His people were looking at him with fear in their eyes. These creatures, these humans, were from a. Everything in the database said they should be monsters. But monsters did not answer distress calls. Monsters did not cross the galaxy to save strangers. "Open a channel," decided. The flickered to life, and for the first time the saw humans. Could not help his reaction. He took a step back. Everything about these creatures screamed danger. Their eyes faced forward, predator eyes designed to track prey. Their teeth were mixed with sharp canines for tearing flesh. Their bodies were thick and muscular, built for strength and endurance. Even their skin looked wrong, too smooth, too bare, hiding the damage beneath. But most terrifying of all was their expression. The human captain, his name appeared on screen, was smiling. His mouth curved up to show his teeth. On the showing teeth was a threat display, a warning before violence. "Greetings," said. "I am captain of the Earth defense vessel Defiance. We received your distress call. We are here to help." Forced himself to speak. "I am elder of the people. Thank you for coming. We did not expect anyone to answer." "We almost didn't," admitted. "There was debate, but in the end someone was dying and we could help. That made the choice simple." Blinked his large eyes. "Simple. You traveled across the galaxy to fight an enemy you had never seen, for a species you had never met. That does not seem simple." Shrugged, a gesture did not understand. Maybe not, but it was right. Behind, Counselor was reading the database entry on humans with growing horror. He whispered the information to the other leaders. "Their planet has a gravity that would crush us," he said. "Their air is toxic to most species. Their world is covered in predators, parasites, and poisons. They evolved by hunting other creatures over long distances until those creatures collapsed from exhaustion. They are persistent predators. They do not stop." They stared at the humans with new understanding. These were not civilized beings who had risen above violence. These were creatures forged in violence. They had survived a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. And they had come to help. "Captain," said carefully, "may I ask, why? Why would your people risk their lives for strangers?" Considered the question. "Because we know what it is like to suffer. We know what it is like to be afraid. And we believe that if you can help, you should. But we cannot repay you. We have nothing to offer. Our world is gone. Our people are refugees. We are weak." Smile faded. His eyes grew serious. "Elder, on my world there is an old saying. The measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. We did not come here expecting payment. We came because you were in trouble. That is enough." Felt something he had not felt since his world burned: hope. "There will be more," he warned. "They will not accept this defeat. They will return with a larger fleet." "We know," said. "We are counting on it." Over the following days, the humans began to work together. Human ships escorted the refugee fleet to a safer location. Engineers helped repair damaged vessels. Medics treated the wounded. The first time Park, the human combat medic, boarded a ship, she caused a panic. They had never seen a human up close, was tall by human standards with broad shoulders and hands. She moved with the easy confidence of someone who had faced death many times. But when she smiled and spoke in gentle tones, the fear began to fade. "I am here to help," she said to a wounded child. The child had been burned during the evacuation. Her blue skin was blistered and raw. "This might hurt a little, but I will be as careful as I can." "Okay." The child's mother watched with wide eyes as cleaned and bandaged the wounds. Her hands were surprisingly gentle for a predator. "You are not what I expected," the mother said. Laughed. "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Monsters perhaps, creatures without mercy." Smile turned sad. "We can be monsters when we need to be, but we try not to be. We have learned that strength without kindness is just cruelty, and cruelty is easy. Kindness is harder. Kindness is what separates us from the things we fight." Word spread through the fleet. They were strange. They were terrifying to look at. Their history was filled with violence, but they were also capable of great gentleness. They laughed and sang together. They mourned their dead. They told stories and played games. They were people. Counselor found himself fascinated. He began documenting everything he learned about humans. He interviewed crew members from the Defiance. He asked about Earth, about its history, its cultures, its challenges. What he learned amazed him. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They had fought great wars. They had poisoned their own air and water. They had built weapons capable of ending their entire species, but they had survived. They had learned. They had changed. "We are not perfect," told him during one conversation. "We have done terrible things to each other, but we keep trying to be better. That is all we can do." "And yet you still fight," said. "You still have weapons, you still have soldiers." "Because there are still threats," said simply. "We dream of a universe where we can put down our weapons forever, but until that day comes, we will be ready to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Wrote this in his notes. He did not fully understand humans yet. He was not sure anyone could, but he was beginning to believe that the signal error, the accident that brought these to his people, might have been the greatest gift the universe ever gave the. In the darkness of space, the survivors reported back to their commanders. They spoke of impossible ships crewed by impossible creatures. They spoke of a battle that should have been easy becoming a slaughter. The Overlord received the reports and read them with growing anger. A new enemy had appeared, an enemy from an enemy that did not know fear. The Overlord smiled. He had crushed 100 species. He had never been defeated. These humans would learn their mistakes soon enough. He began assembling his fleet. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when conquerors collide. They called the wrong world. They answered, and the galaxy shook. Part 3. The Nature of Predators. 2 weeks passed in the asteroid field. The humans used this time well. They repaired their ships. They studied the enemy. They prepared for what was coming. Spent every waking hour analyzing battle tactics. She watched recordings of their previous conquests. She studied their formations, their weapons, their timing. And the more she learned, the more she smiled. "They are predictable," she told Captain during a strategy meeting. "They have conquered 100 worlds, but every world was the same, peaceful species, no resistance. They have never fought anyone who fought back." "So they are not used to real battle?" asked. "They do not know what real battle is," said. "They think war is about overwhelming force. Show up with more ships, more weapons, and the enemy surrenders or dies. They have forgotten, or never learned, what happens when you face something that does not surrender, something that bites back." Minyu, the quiet weapons specialist, looked up from his maintenance work. "They will learn." Nodded, "Yes, they will learn, and I intend to be their teacher." While the officers planned, the crew of the Defiant spent time with the refugees. Park became a regular visitor to the medical bay of the main refugee ship. She taught healers about human medicine and learned about their own methods in return. One day, a young named asked her a question that many had wondered. "Your planet," said, "the database calls it is it truly so dangerous?" Considered the question. "Dangerous, I suppose it is, but you get used to it." "Get used to it? How can you get used to a world that tries to kill you?" Laughed. "You just do. On Earth, we have animals that can crush you, bite you, poison you, or eat you alive. We have storms that can destroy entire cities. We have mountains that explode and ground that shakes and water that drowns. Our own sun can burn our skin if we stay outside too long." Stared at her with wide eyes. "How did your species survive?" "By being stubborn," said with a grin. "And by working together. Our ancestors faced things that should have killed them. Giant predators, ice ages, volcanic disasters, but they survived because they helped each other. They shared food. They protected their weak. They passed down knowledge. One human is fragile, but many humans together, we are unstoppable." This was hard for them to understand. They were gentle beings. They had evolved on a kind world with mild weather and few predators. The idea of a species forged in constant struggle was alien to them. But they were beginning to see the advantages. Engineer Bay had taken apart several pieces of salvage technology. She studied their weapons, their shields, their engines, and she was not impressed. Elegant, she muttered while examining a power core. Efficient, boring. Boring, asked the technician who was watching her work. Yes, boring, it is good technology, clean, logical, but there is no creativity, no improvisation. They build things that work exactly as designed. They never think about what happens when things break. What do you mean? Held up a piece of the power core. This component is essential. If it fails, the whole system shuts down. A smart enemy could target it and disable the ship instantly. Humans build differently. We expect things to break. We build backup systems. We design parts that can be replaced with other parts. We make things ugly and messy because ugly and messy keeps working when elegant and clean fails. She tossed the component aside and pulled out her own. I am designing some new toys for our friends, things they will not expect, things that do not follow the rules. The technician leaned closer, curious. What she saw on the screen made no sense to her. The designs were chaotic, impractical, and somehow terrifying. Will these work? She asked. Smiled, probably. And even if they do not work perfectly, they will definitely make the very unhappy. 3 weeks after the first battle, the returned. Warlord commanded a battle group of 20 warships. He had been chosen by Overlord himself for this mission. His orders were simple: destroy the strange alien ships, and finish the extermination of the. Was confident, 20 ships against 12. The math was simple. The math was wrong. The human fleet met at the edge of the asteroid field. Captain had arranged his ships in a defensive formation that looked weak. It was not weak. It was a trap. They are approaching, the sensor officer reported. Standard attack pattern, they are not being cautious. Good, said, they have not learned yet. Let us teach them. The battle began with the charging forward, confident in their numbers. Human ships fell back, seeming to retreat. The followed, eager for easy kills. They did not see the mines until it was too late. Engineer had spent 3 weeks seeding the asteroid field with hidden weapons, bombs, energy disruptors, gravity traps. The fleet flew straight into a web of destruction. 3 ships died in the first 5 minutes. 2 more were crippled. The neat formation dissolved into chaos. Now ordered. The human ships stopped retreating. They turned and attacked, but they did not attack randomly, had studied every formation. She knew which ships carried the commanders. She knew which ships controlled the communications. She targeted these first. The battle group lost coordination. Ships that should have worked together began acting independently. Some fled. Some charged blindly into human fire. Some simply stopped, their crews unsure what to do without orders. Warlord watched his fleet fall apart and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. What are these creatures? He demanded. Why do they not fight with honor? Why do they use tricks and traps? His tactical officer had no answer. Honor was for civilized species. Honor was for prey. These humans fought like predators. They used every advantage. They showed no mercy. All ships withdraw, ordered, fall back to. He never finished the sentence. The Defiance had been working its way through the battle, ignoring other targets. Now it was in range of his command ship. Its weapons fired. The first volley took down the shields. The second destroyed the engines. The third killed the weapon systems. Ship drifted, helpless, surrounded by humans. A communication came through. Captain's face appeared on screen. Warlord said calmly, "Your fleet is destroyed. You are unable to fight. You have 2 choices. Surrender and tell us everything you know about the Dominion, or refuse and die. I will give you 1 minute to decide." Stared at the human captain. Those predator eyes. Those teeth. This creature had just destroyed 20 warships with 12. He had used the environment, exploited weaknesses, refused to fight fair. And he was smiling. "You cannot win," said, though his voice shook. "The Overlord will send more ships, Hundreds of ships, thousands. You cannot defeat the entire Dominion. Maybe not, admitted. But we will make the cost very, very high, and I think your overlord will find that we are not worth that cost. You are wrong. He will never stop. He will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy. Nodded slowly. Good. Then he will come to us instead of hunting innocent people. That sounds like a win. Could not understand this. These humans were insane. They were inviting destruction. They were challenging an empire that had never been defeated. But as he looked at its face, he realized something. The human was not afraid. He knew what was coming. He knew the odds, and he did not care. Your species whispered, "What are you?" "We are human," said simply. We grew up surrounded by things that wanted to kill us. We learned to fight before we learned to talk. We are not the biggest or the strongest species in the galaxy, but we do not give up. We do not surrender, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. He leaned forward. Tell your overlord, tell everyone. They have answered, and we are just getting started. Surrendered. He told the humans everything: troop numbers, fleet positions, supply lines, weaknesses. He had no loyalty left. He had only fear. The surviving ships fled back to the Dominion. They carried a message, one that would spread through the Empire like fire. There was a new enemy, an enemy from a forbidden world, an enemy that hunted hunters. The galaxy was about to change. They called the wrong world. The answered, and the galaxy shook. Part 4. Word spreads. The news traveled faster than light. In cantinas and councils, in ships and stations, in every corner of the galaxy, beings spoke the same words. They have been defeated. A new species has appeared. They come from a. At first, many did not believe it. The Dominion had ruled this region of space for 500 years. They had crushed anyone who opposed them. The idea that a primitive species from a forbidden world could challenge them seemed impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. 2 battle groups had been destroyed. The survivors spoke of human ships that refused to die, human tactics that broke every rule, human soldiers who fought with terrifying efficiency. The galactic database was updated. Earth's entry grew longer. The warning level was raised to maximum. A new note was added at the bottom, written by a counselor named, "These creatures are dangerous, but they are not evil. They came to help us when no one else would. Perhaps danger and goodness are not opposites." This note confused many species. Creatures were supposed to be monsters. They were not supposed to be heroes. In the halls of the Unified Systems Alliance, the Great Council debated what to do. The Alliance was a coalition of peaceful species, dedicated to trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. They had no military. They had never needed one. "These humans are a threat," said one counselor, a tall from a core world. "Species are unstable, violent, they cannot be trusted." "And yet they saved said another counselor, a small furry being with large ears. "They crossed the galaxy to help strangers. That does not sound unstable. That sounds noble." "Noble?" The first counselor clicked his mandibles in disapproval. "They are predators. Everything about them is designed for killing. Their eyes track movement. Their bodies are built for pursuit. They evolved by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. And you call them noble." "I call them effective," said a third voice. This was an ancient being, a species so old that no one remembered there. "They have threatened the Alliance for centuries. We have negotiated, appeased, avoided conflict, and still they expand. Still they conquer. Perhaps it is time to consider a different approach." The debate continued for days. In the end, the Alliance decided to wait and watch. They would not ally with the humans, not yet, but they would not oppose them either. This decision pleased no one, which meant it was probably correct. Far from the Alliance, in the heart of the Dominion, Overlord received the reports of his losses. He read them in his throne room, surrounded by trophies from conquered worlds. Skulls, flags, artifacts. Each one represented a species that had thought they could resist the dominion. They had all failed. Humans, said, tasting the word. From Earth, a Class 7. His advisors stood before him, trembling. They had expected rage, instead seemed curious. Tell me about this world, he commanded. One advisor stepped forward, clutching a Earth is a mid-sized planet in an unremarkable star system. High gravity, volatile climate, dense with predatory life. The native species, humans, evolved as persistent hunters. They would track prey over vast distances, sometimes for days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Interesting, said. What else? They have a violent history. Their species has fought many wars against itself. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire world before they developed faster-than-light travel. Many analysts believed they would destroy themselves before reaching the stars. But they did not. No, Overlord, they survived, they unified mostly, and now they have come to our space. Stood from his throne. He was massive even by standards, 4 arms, each thick with muscle, gray skin covered in battle scars, eyes that had watched civilizations burn. They defeated 2 battle groups, he said. How? The advisor swallowed. They did not fight fairly, Overlord. They used traps, ambushes. They targeted command ships first. They exploited our formations. They refused to follow the patterns of civilized warfare. They fought like predators. Yes, Overlord. Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Good. I was growing bored with prey that does not fight back. Assemble the fleet. Not a battle group, not a squadron, the full armada, every ship we have. We will go to space, and we will teach these humans what it means to challenge the Dominion. The advisor bowed and retreated, returned to his throne and looked at his trophy wall. Soon, he thought, there would be human skulls among them. He had no idea how wrong he was. Back in the asteroid field, the humans prepared for war. Captain knew the enemy would return in force. He had bought time, not victory. They would not make the same mistakes again. They would come with overwhelming numbers. They would learn from their defeats. But so would the humans. Developed new strategies based on the intelligence from Warlord. She identified weaknesses in the Dominion fleet structure. She designed tactics that would maximize damage while minimizing exposure. She planned for scenarios where the humans were outnumbered 5 to 1, 10 to 1, 50 to 1. We cannot win a straight fight against the full armada, she told the command staff. We need force multipliers, allies, technology, anything that changes the math. Engineer had ideas about technology. She had been experimenting with hybrid systems that combined human engineering with salvaged components. The results were unpredictable but powerful. I call this the screamer, she said, holding up a device the size of a dinner plate. It broadcasts on every frequency the use for communication. When it activates, their entire network goes deaf for about 30 seconds, long enough to cause chaos, long enough for us to hit them before they can respond. What are the side effects? Asked. Shrugged. Probably gives everyone nearby a headache. Maybe causes hallucinations if you stand too close. I have not tested it properly. You have not tested it. No time. We work with what we have. This was the human way. Improvise, adapt, make things work with insufficient resources and impossible deadlines. It was not elegant, but it was effective. The question of allies was more difficult. The humans were alone in hostile space. The alliance would not help them. Other species were too afraid of to offer support. But they could help in their own way. Elder approached Captain with an unusual offer. We are not warriors, he said. We cannot fight beside you, but we can serve in other ways. Our people are skilled at healing, at building, at repairing. Let us support your fleet. Let us free your soldiers to fight while we handle everything else. Accepted immediately. Volunteers joined the human ships, working in medical bays and engineering sections. They learned quickly and worked hard. They wanted to help the species that had saved them. More surprisingly, some asked to learn combat. Minyu, the quiet weapons specialist, became their teacher. He did not expect much. They were gentle beings built for peace, but they surprised him. "Why do you want to learn?" he asked them on the first day. A young named answered, "Because we watched our world burn, because we hid while others died, because we are tired of being helpless. We do not want to become like you, we cannot become like you, but we want to be able to protect ourselves. We want to fight for our own survival." Minyu nodded slowly. Fighting is not just about weapons, it is about will, the will to act when you are afraid, the will to continue when you want to stop, the will to hurt someone who is trying to hurt you. Can you do that? His large eyes were hard. "Teach us and we will find out." The training was difficult. Bodies were not built for combat. They were slower than humans, weaker, more fragile. But they were smart and determined. They learned to use weapons designed for their abilities. They learned to fight in ways that compensated for their limitations. Minyu found himself respecting them. They would never be warriors like humans, but they would not be helpless either. Weeks passed. The human fleet grew stronger. Damaged ships were repaired. New weapons were installed. Tactics were refined. The refugee fleet became a support network providing food, medicine, and repairs. And still they waited. Then one day, the sensors lit up. "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer reported, her voice tight. "Many contacts, very many contacts." Looked at the display and felt his heart drop. Ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They kept coming, wave after wave, until the screen was filled with hostile signatures. "How many?" he asked quietly. Checked her readings twice before answering. "Approximately 600 vessels, including the flagship. Overlord is commanding personally." 600 ships against 13. The math was impossible. But had never been good at math. "All hands to battle stations," he ordered. "Today we show them what it can do." The final battle was about to begin. They called the wrong world. They answered, and the galaxy shook. Part 5: The Siege of Prime. 600 warships filled the sky like an iron cloud. Overlord sat on his command throne aboard the Dominion flagship and watched his armada take position. This was the largest fleet ever assembled in history. Every ship capable of combat had been gathered. Every warrior eager to prove themselves had volunteered. This was not just a battle, it was a statement, a demonstration of power that would echo across the galaxy. Today, they would crush thee and remind the universe who ruled this region of space. "The humans are holding position near the asteroid field," his tactical officer reported. 13 vessels, no attempt to retreat. Smiled, "Brave, foolish but brave. Open a channel. I wish to speak with their leader." The flickered and captain's face appeared. He looked calm, almost relaxed. Behind him, his crew moved with purpose, preparing for battle. Overlord said, "I wondered when you would show up personally." Leaned forward, "You know me. I know everything about your dominion, fleet positions, supply lines, weaknesses. Your former warlord was very helpful before he died." For a moment, his eyes flickered with anger. Then he composed himself. "It does not matter what you know. Look at my fleet. Look at yours. You cannot win. Surrender now and I will make your deaths quick." Appeared to consider this. "That is a generous offer, but I have a counter-proposal. Turn your ships around. Leave this space. Promise never to attack thee again. Do that and I will let you go home." Silence filled the bridge of both ships. On the flagship, officers stared at their screens in disbelief. This human, this creature from a primitive world, was offering terms to the overlord of the entire Dominion. It was insane. It was hilarious. Began to laugh. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "You, let me go home. Human, you have 13 ships. I have 600. You cannot possibly believe you can win." I believe we can make this very expensive for you, said quietly. I believe that by the time this battle is over, your dominion will be crippled. Maybe you kill us. Maybe you win, but you will bleed. You will lose ships you cannot replace and warriors you cannot train. And other species you have conquered, species you have threatened, they will see what happened here. They will see that the mighty can be hurt, can be broken, and they will start to wonder if maybe they should fight back too. Laughter faded. The human's words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. The Dominion ruled through fear, if that fear weakened. You would sacrifice yourself to make a point, asked. If necessary, but I do not plan to sacrifice myself. I plan to win. How? Explain this to me. How do 13 ships defeat 600? Smiled that predator smile that showed his teeth. You will find out. The channel closed. Sat back in his throne, troubled for the first time. There was something in the human's eyes, not desperation, not fear, confidence. The kind of confidence that came from knowing something your enemy did not know. Begin the attack, ordered, destroy them all. The armada moved forward like a wave of metal. They advanced in perfect formation, weapons ready, shields raised. Against any normal enemy, it would have been overwhelming. But the humans were not normal. Engineer activated her first surprise. 50 hidden mines, planted weeks ago, detonated simultaneously. The front line of the fleet flew straight into a wall of fire. 20 ships died instantly. 30 more were damaged. Press forward, commanded. They cannot have many more tricks. He was wrong. The asteroid field came alive. Concealed weapons platforms, disguised as rocks, opened fire on the advancing ships. Gravity traps seized vessels and held them in place, making them easy targets. Communication jammers created pockets of silence where ships could not coordinate. Had turned the entire battlefield into a weapon. Target the command ships, she ordered. Cut off their heads. Human vessels darted through the chaos, ignoring the larger warships to strike at the ships controlling fleet movements. One by one, commanders died. The armada's coordination dissolved. But there were still too many of them. His forces. He was not a fool. He recognized strategy and adapted. He dispersed his fleet, reducing the effectiveness of the traps. He ordered his ships to prioritize the humans above all else. He flooded the battlefield with fighters and attack craft. The human ships began taking damage, first small hits, then larger ones. The Defiance lost its forward shields. 2 other human vessels reported critical damage. A third was destroyed entirely, its crew ejecting in escape pods. They are too many, said grimly. We are running out of options. Not yet, said. Signal the execute phase 3. Across the battlefield, the refugee fleet had been waiting. 47 transport ships, unarmed and vulnerable. They had stayed hidden in the asteroid field, protected by the chaos of battle. Now they moved. They did not attack. They could not attack, but they did something they did not expect. They rescued. Every time a human ship was destroyed, transports rushed to collect the escape pods. Every time a human vessel became too damaged to fight, it transferred its crew to ships, which carried them to intact human vessels. Human crews did not stay dead. They kept coming back. A commander named destroyed a human frigate and watched it explode. 10 minutes later, the same crew was aboard another ship, firing at him again. He destroyed that ship too. The crew transferred again. They are immortal, shouted into his communicator. Kill them and they come back. They were not immortal. They were just very, very good at not giving up. Minyu led boarding parties onto vessels. He had trained for this, close combat in tight spaces, where human advantages in strength and endurance mattered most. They were larger, but they were not used to fighting in the corridors of their own ships. They expected enemies to stay outside, at weapons range. Minyu taught them differently. He moved through the ship like a ghost, taking down warriors twice his size. Behind him came volunteers, the ones he had trained. They were not as effective as humans, but they were effective enough. They secured captured ships and turned their weapons on the enemy. Park ran the medical operations, treating wounded humans and alike. Injured soldiers were patched up and sent back to fight within hours. They had no equivalent. Their warriors who fell stayed fallen. Hours passed. The battle continued. The lost 100 ships, then 200, then 300. Their formations collapsed. Their coordination failed. They still outnumbered the humans, but the numbers kept shrinking. And the humans kept fighting. Watched his empire's pride crumble and felt something he had never felt before: doubt. "They should be dead," he whispered. "They should have surrendered. Why do they not stop?" His tactical officer could not answer. No one could answer. The databases said species were aggressive, but this was beyond aggression. This was something else, some quality that had no name in the language. Humans called it stubbornness. They called it determination. They called it spite, the refusal to lose simply because the universe said they should. By the 15th hour of battle, the armada was shattered. Less than 200 ships remained operational. The humans had lost 9 of their 13 vessels, but their crews survived. They kept fighting from borrowed ships, captured ships, damaged ships that should not have been able to fly. "Overlord," the tactical officer said quietly, "we must retreat. If we stay, we lose everything." Gripped his throne so hard his claws left marks. Retreat. The overlord of the Dominion had never retreated. His ancestors had never retreated. Retreat was for prey. But so was extinction. "All ships," said, the words tasting like poison. "Withdraw, return to Dominion space." The surviving vessels turned and fled. They jumped to faster than light, scattering in all directions. Some were caught by human ships and destroyed. Most escaped. Overlord was the last to leave. Before he jumped, he looked back at the battlefield one final time. Debris everywhere. Hundreds of his ships destroyed. His empire's reputation shattered. And in the middle of it all, a single human vessel, the Defiance, battered and broken but still flying, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. To the Dominion and anyone else listening, today we defended those who could not defend themselves. We paid a high price, but we did not break. We will never break. Remember this day. Remember what we did here. And know that wherever there is cruelty, wherever there is injustice, wherever the strong prey on the weak, they will answer." Jumped to and vanished. On the Defiance, Captain collapsed into his command chair and allowed himself one moment of exhaustion. Around him, his surviving crew, and a handful of others, looked equally drained. "We won," said, disbelief in her voice. "Somehow we won." "We survived," corrected. "That is enough. That has always been enough." He could see the ships approaching. He could see the captured vessels, now crewed by humans and working together. He could see the wreckage of the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the void, the survivors of the battle spread the word. They were real. They had answered a call for help. They had faced impossible odds and won. The galaxy shook.